He's here and present.
Right.
I can continue.
Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, Your
Oh, we
Honor,
started already? Jesus.
in this city,
Right
we follow certain case laws in order to ensure justice is carried out
Right in.
fairly for all citizens. One of those case laws is Tennessee v. Garner. That case law specifies that that lethal force is authorized in the event that a fleeing suspect poses a significant threat within the reasoning of the pursuing officer. In the case at bar, my client, Mr. Eugene Zuckerberg, was not charged with any crime on the date in question, and he was not fleeing law enforcement in the day in question. As Mr. Zuckerberg was sat in a parked vehicle when officers responded to reports of illegal weapons being brandished, my client, Mr. Zuckerberg, was near fatally shot as he sat motionless and compliant in said vehicle. Again, Mr. Zuckerberg was subsequently charged with no crime. He was treated for his injuries, tested negative for GSR, not charged, and released. Law enforcement referred to my client, Mr. Zuckerberg, as, quote, collateral damage in their pursuit of two suspects who were armed and found to be in possession of Class II weapons. Collateral damage, of course, is a military reference. And last I checked, law enforcement are not military servicemen. They are to protect and serve the public and keep the peace. Mr. Zuckerberg was wrongfully fired upon when officers had the training and the tool set necessary to analyze the situation and make a qualified decision. My opponent will be arguing, undoubtedly, qualified immunity against these allegations by Mr. Zuckerberg. But qualified immunity applies to peace officers because they are trained to evaluate and analyze each situation they are in and make qualified decisions. No such decision was made in the case of my client, Mr. Zuckerberg. Peace officers simply saw him sat in a vehicle, assumed because he was in that vehicle, he was a threat, and without further analysis opened fire on my client and injured him severely. My client seeks $100,000 in punitive damages for excessive force and violation of unreasonable search and seizure on his person
Thank you very
the
much.
Fourth Amendment of the Constitution.
Sticky.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Miss West, your opening, please.
Thank you. Hello, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the court. Today, Murphy Braun is going to paint a picture of an old and elderly, frail man, an incompetent man who was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and how he was just unjustly sprayed down with bullets by evil police officer, Alex Casterman. That he is an innocent third party in all of this. That picturesque situation did not happen. It is untrue, and it is a lie. It is simply an attempt to scam the courts for $100,000. Instead, I'll show you the truth, that Eugene willingly entered a vehicle containing two violent criminals, proceeded to get into an extensive and dangerous police chase in which automatic gunfire was shot directly from the plaintiff to my officer right here. Not to mention that in the reports, Alex Casterman did not shoot Eugene. I don't even know why we're here today. They attempted to murder Officer Casterman in cold blood several times.
Thank you, Miss West.
Oops.
Mr. Braun, give me one
It
moment.
was McLean that shot me.
I will advise everyone
Sure,
in this
Your Honor.
courtroom, please. No outbursts, no disruptive activity of any nature. Does everyone understand me? And can everyone hear me?
Oh!
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
All right, this is your first and only warning. I will hand out charges for contempt of court. Does everyone understand that?
Oh!
Including
Your Honor.
people who jump over the bench like that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Eugene, stop saluting.
All
please.
right.
All right, Mr. Braun, are you prepared to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
I would like to call Casterman to the stand, please.
All right, Officer Casterman, will you please approach and be sworn in by Detective McCormick?
No, it's actually not by voice.
Officer Casterman, could you go ahead and raise your left hand for me?
Who's this
Do
tubby
you
guy in the
swear,
background?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you sin?
I do.
I'll help you, Sim.
The witness is sworn in. Your
Thank you very much. Officer Casterman, I'll remind you at this time, sir, you are now under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, Officer Casterman, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So, Mr. Casterman, on the day in question, you responded to a 911 call about Class 2 firearms at Pillbox Medical. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you responded to that call, who was the ranking officer on duty at the time?
Myself.
I think that's why he's done it then.
Okay. And when you arrived to that 911 call at Pillbox Medical, could you describe the scene that you encountered?
I saw a red in color Kuruma leaving the hospital headed southbound Elgin Avenue, and the gentleman who had called in the 911 call pointing clearly at that vehicle, stating that that vehicle had flashed a Class 2 firearm at Pillbox Medical.
Hey?
Okay.
I don't remember any of this.
Was my client, Mr. Zuckerberg, present at Pillbox Medical at that point
Yeah, I
in
don't know when
time?
that was.
I'm unsure.
Okay. Did you have any reason to believe that Mr. Zuckerberg at that time had a Class 2 firearm?
No.
Okay. And obviously, according to the police report here, you had to relocate that vehicle. So you lost sight of the vehicle after it left Pillbox. Is that correct?
It fled northbound on Elgin. Well, correction, it wasn't fled, it drove northbound on Elgin. I followed it, attempting to gain eyes when it pulled into the apartments. I briefly lost visual for about 10 or so seconds.
Okay. And you relocated this vehicle at the Pink Cage Motel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at this time, did you see anyone leave the vehicle?
No.
Okay. That is contrary to what is reported on the incident report. Are you sure about that?
There was 3 occupants sitting inside the vehicle. I didn't see anyone leave the vehicle.
2. I got in right at the end as we were driving off.
Okay, I have here an unknown individual left the vehicle wearing all black along with
yes.
Lang Buddha and Alabaster Slim. Again, are you sure about that, Mr. Casterman?
Apologies, let me recorrect myself. Yes, there was 4 occupants in the vehicle.
Pressure him. Yes, pressure
one
him,
occupant
Buffy.
did leave the vehicle dressed and
Apply
all
pressure.
black and wearing a mask. They ran into an apartment.
Okay. Did anyone that you sighted inside the vehicle or leaving the vehicle match the description of Mr. Zuckerberg, my client?
Wait, 4
Mr.
now?
Zuckerberg was sitting inside the vehicle.
I only got in
Okay,
once
so
they
he
were
was
driving
already
off.
inside
the first
the
time I got
vehicle?
in was when they were gonna drive off. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember too, but
Mr. Casterman?
Apologies, yes, he was.
Okay, so he did not enter the vehicle. He was already in the vehicle.
When I
Again,
pulled up
I'm
on
just
the scene,
going
yes.
off your report.
It's unclear to whether Mr. Zuckerberg was in the pillbox or if he got in at Pink Cage Motel. When I pulled up at Pink Cage Motel and relocated the Kuruma, he was inside the vehicle.
Okay.
it was
Alright,
looking
so,
good actually.
Once you were
us.
at the Pink Cage,
thought we were fucked.
you attempted to detain Mr. Buddha, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, what occurred at that point, Mr. Casterman?
Mr. Buddha exited the vehicle. We spoke in the corner. I told him the reasoning for the detainment. He was going to be placed in cuffs and questioned about the recent 911 and frisked for officer safety. At which point, a little incident occurred. It's not really relevant, so I'm going to bypass it. Mr. Zuckerberg got into... correction, he was still in the vehicle. Mr. Buddha went back into the vehicle.
I don't think that's what happened.
I asked Mr. Buddha to leave the vehicle. He was not free to go. He's under detainment. Mr. Zuckerberg argued in favor of Mr. Buddha, telling Mr. Buddha not to leave the vehicle. He doesn't have to leave the vehicle because I have not told him the reasoning for detainment. At which point I told Buddha to leave the vehicle or he'd be forcibly removed from the vehicle, at which point a pursuit ensued.
Okay, at that point in time, did you inform Mr. Zuckerberg
remember chats
that
any
he was
roleplay?
under detainment?
I cannot recall. I don't know.
Okay. Did you ever instruct Mr. Zuckerberg to step out of the vehicle?
No.
You both happy?
I only asked Buddha to leave the vehicle.
Okay.
No, I think Buddha was walking around out
So
the car.
a
They questioned
vehicle
him, then let
chase
him go,
ensued
and then
from
they
that
came back
point,
to
is
him
that
again.
correct?
In
Yes.
terms of my knowledge, they questioned him, then let them
Okay,
go,
and were you in a patrol car
and then
or
again
a
wanted to question him
motorcycle?
again.
I was on a motorcycle.
All right. So it says here in the report
As far
that
as I
at
know.
some point Mr. Buddha allegedly reversed his vehicle into your bike. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, what happened?
As an attempt against my life, I opened fire on the vehicle and they immediately opened fire back.
Okay. So
Both
at
were
that point in
Class 1
time,
firearms. My bad.
all right. So the pursuit continued from that point with both sides opening up. Is that accurate?
I believe I wasn't there immediately after. I had to fix the motorcycle and make sure that myself was okay. Once I regained back into the pursuit, the distance between the vehicles was a little too large to shoot safely, in terms of the other pedestrians and users on the road. So only when we went on innocence, when the Class 2 opened fire on us, did we fire back.
Okay. So at let me see here. Southbound on Popular Street is where you
Keep it cool, chat.
re-engage the vehicle, correct? And
Yes.
And at some point after that, the vehicle became
cool.
disabled, according to the report. Is that also accurate?
Yes. Once we had been open fired by the Class 2, when we returned fire, Officer McLean had managed to land a shot on the tire, which spun it out, and they hit a pole, and it crashed.
Okay, and what occurred after that point?
Thank you, chat.
At the moment we got open fired on by the automatic gunfire, Officer McLean took a left southbound behind a set of buildings. Myself, I went northbound right behind another set of buildings. I hopped off my motorcycle and grabbed a shotgun. McLean was out the vehicle faster than I was and pulled an AR. McLean bag dumped into the vehicle. I believe Mr. Slim ran out of the vehicle behind the ledge and opened fire at McLean, where McLean neutralized.
No, he got
Mr.
fucked
Slim.
up before he could do anything, I think.
As I got round the side of the building to get a visual on the car,
Rob, thanks for the resub, man.
Mr. Buddha was at the front end, the hood of the vehicle,
You say kudo.
firing at McLean. At that point,
Mr.
I
Buddha.
fired at Buddha. Buddha then
Buddha.
ran westbound towards an alleyway. Again, I continued to open fire with my shotgun. He took a left southbound through the alleyway. As I was on foot and pulled up to the alleyway, Deputy Clarkson also pulled up in his truck and got sprayed at by Mr. Buddha with the Class 2 firearm. Mr. Buddha then ran up on the roof where Clarkson neutralized him on top of the roof.
Okay, but where was Eugene during all this?
Okay.
Crouched down
At any
in the
point in
passenger seat
time
with
during
no door.
this exchange, did Mr. Zuckerberg
With his head between his knees.
appear to be a threat?
That's simply unknown. He was in the from the pursuit angle. We cannot see inside the vehicle.
I had
Okay.
no,
Did
I had no
did
door.
Mr. Zuckerberg ever attempt to flee the scene?
There was no door on my side.
I believe he was neutralized in the vehicle.
Okay.
Spare any change, sir?
Right, we might be good
All right.
here.
Again, at any point in time during this entire situation, did Mr. Zuckerberg pose a visible threat to law enforcement?
He was sitting, or he was an occupant of a vehicle where multiple firearms were fired outside
the
the
question.
vehicle. So yes.
Okay, so he occupied a vehicle and was thus a threat.
Okay,
Willing,
we might
a
be
willing
good.
participant
We might win this.
inside of a vehicle.
Doesn't matter if we do or not,
Opened
but
fire on multiple officers with multiple guns.
All right, Mr. Casterman, what in your opinion could Mr. Zuckerberg have done to not
Loud,
have been a willing
fuck.
participant?
911. Going out to the
911?
vehicle. Yet going out the vehicle, the initial detainment. Possibly even shouting.
I
when
was
the vehicle
shouting.
had struck me. If I believe I would have heard that. I believe there's multiple situations that could have occurred that would have indicated that Mr. Zuckerberg was not a willing participant.
So you believe you would have heard Mr. Zuckerberg
Why, hello there.
from inside of a speeding vehicle?
No, I said I believe.
You
I
know
would
which
have heard
way
them
it is to the
when
courthouse?
vehicle
Oh
had
my
struck
God.
My motorcycle, which that vehicle was stationary.
Hey, thank you.
Right, right. So Mr. Zuckerberg was found in the vehicle following the situation being code 4. What seat in the vehicle was Mr. Zuckerberg in?
Unknown.
Unknown. Okay, perfect.
It was.
Was Mr.
reversed.
Zuckerberg treated
Your
for his
Honor.
injuries?
Yes.
Can I
Is
get
that
a
an
quick...
objection, Miss West?
No, I just need a
What?
2-minute break for something.
Obvious.
I
All right.
apologize.
What?
I will
Dogs?
put this court in recess while the
Oh.
the issue is
Oh,
taken
not
care
again.
of. Thank you.
Oh. No.
All right. I'm going to take that opportunity
Holy
to
shit,
run
fuck.
to the little lawyer's room.
All right.
Oh. Oh, dogs are terrifying.
Is that you?
Appease to the judges.
Hey, Orb, how you doing?
You discussed with Murphy, yeah, but it's only a short recess. I don't think I need to. I think Murphy's got this in the bag. I think he actually went for Casterman on purpose because he knows less about the situation, and it's going to make him come up like this. I don't recall. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm unsure. I don't recall.
Hey, how's it going?
DA should have actually
Good, how you
pulled
doing
Curtis
there?
here, not Curtis, but
doing great.
McCormick. Now that I think about it, the
Hi,
DA should have asked for McCormick to be here.
It's been a
Actually,
while. How you been?
that's
How
so
the kids?
loud.
They're doing great.
It's nice.
McLean, yeah. Louder.
Alexia. Alexia.
Did they check GSR? Yeah, they did. I didn't have GSR. I had no GSR, no bullets shot from me, no gun on me.
Hold me like I am on the Titanic.
Oh shit.
That's disgusting.
All right. We'll
Can smell
we'll
it
wait
over
for
here.
Mr. Braun to return, then we'll.
No
there we
waiting
go.
required, Your Honor.
All right. This court's now back in session. Mr. Braun, you may ask your question again. I believe you're getting ready to ask a question.
Yes. When the incident was code 4, Mr. Zuckerberg was detained and taken for treatment of his injuries. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Officer Casterman, could you clarify what Code 4 means for the court, please?
The situation was no longer a threat, and was no longer any more active.
Yeah, because everyone was
situations.
dead.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so when my client, Mr. Zuckerberg, was in detainment, was he searched at that time?
I believe he was frisked.
Was Mr. Zuckerberg found to be armed?
Negative.
Was my client swabbed for GSR residue?
Yes.
What was the result of that GSR test?
GSR negative.
Okay. And after treatment for his injuries and Mr. Zuckerberg was stable, through your investigation, was Mr. Zuckerberg found to be guilty of any charges?
No.
No.
I
Was
don't know
my
why the
client,
DA
Mr.
in this
Zuckerberg,
kind of
released from
circumstance doesn't
custody,
just
cleared of any wrongdoing?
give money. Settlement.
Yes.
The DA and ADA should
All right,
just be settling on cases
that's all
like
I have
this.
for now. Actually, I have one more question. Just to clarify again, who was the ranking officer on duty
Well, settling's
at the
RP2.
time of this incident?
Myself.
All right, thank you, Mr. Casterman.
All right, Miss West, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes, I do.
All right, you
All
may
right.
proceed.
Fucking glasses, get off my face.
All right. Were you able to ascertain
Why
who
am I
was
so
shooting the
short?
automatic weaponry from the vehicle?
No, it's not really possible to see from a pursuit angle who is firing from a moving vehicle.
Okay. Can you clarify again for the courts
What the
what
fuck?
weapons you were using throughout this entire incident?
When I was rammed in an attempt on my life, I used a Class 1I pistol to fire at the vehicle. When the automatic weapon was fired, I used a shotgun.
Okay. At this point, I like to point out Mr. Zuckerberg's medical records that show he was wearing a bulletproof vest and that the 3 rounds caught were from an assault
No, I
rifle.
wasn't.
Did you order McLean to unrack an AR and shoot it at the plaintiff? Or any of the individuals?
Negative.
Negative, okay. Okay. I would just like to point out this section in the incident report. This is written by Officer Stephen McLean himself. McLean was able to shoot the suspect's tire out and then get out of his vehicle to unrack his AR and shoot 2 of the suspects down. The driver ran to a roof and held out up there. He attempted to shoot at Casterman and Clarkson. The suspect was gunned down by Clarkson. So from this, there were 3 suspects in the vehicle. McLean downed 2 of them, and Clarkson downed the 3rd. You said that you did not give an order for McLean to shoot, so I'm a little unsure why we are here today. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Braun? Any more questions for this witness?
I do. Just could I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Warning, I'm going to ban you for being toxic. Get the fuck out of here. Well, she's dumb. You can have a ban too, dude. You can have a ban too.
All right, thanks,
Bye-bye.
Your Honor.
Roleplay, dude. Stop being rude.
You may
Roleplay,
proceed with
stop being
your
rude.
question for this witness.
Funny enough, she's not a professional
Mr. Casterman.
DA or ADA. Funny enough.
Again, did you ever at any point in time see my client, Mr. Zuckerberg, with a weapon?
Negative. It's really hard to see a moving vehicle inside of a moving vehicle.
I'm not talking about
I love the
when
rest
the
of you, though,
vehicle was
Chat.
moving. I'm talking about at the scene at the Pink Cage Motel, at the scene at Pillbox, where visual ID of your suspects was ascertained.
I said Murphy. I
Negative.
told Murphy I'd give him half if he won this for me.
Okay, so you had a clear idea of who definitely did
Would you like to see
have
that to
Class
Shaw
2
to
firearms
get him to do it?
in their hand.
Negative. I had a suspicion, but it could be possible that there was more.
I think there was to Shaw. I'll give him a bunch anyway, though.
It could be possible. Could you clarify that?
Due to all three individuals rolling around together, it could be possible that there's more suspects. You never assume there's just one, purely for officers' safety.
Okay. As for the bulletproof vest, how did you come to the determination that Mr. Zuckerberg was wearing a ballistic vest of some kind?
I did not come to that determination. I don't know who said I said that, but I did not.
Objection.
Okay.
This is in the medical report. He would have no knowledge of this.
He already answered the question. Are you objecting to the answer, or are you objecting to the question
No.
which your client has already answered?
Withdrawn. Yeah, withdrawn.
Thank you.
I've got nothing further for this witness.
All right, Miss West. Anything
nothing
pertaining
further.
to what Mr. Braun has just said?
Nothing
Officer
further, Your Honor.
Casterman, you may step down at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll advise you, if you are recalled, sir, that you're still under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Braun,
Easy money, we'll see.
your next witness, please.
I would like to call Mr. Zuckerberg to the stand.
All right, Mr. Zuckerberg, will you approach the
All
stand
right.
and please be sworn in by Detective McCormick once
Of
you have gotten to
Of
the stand,
course,
sir.
good sir. Yes, no problem, of course. Yes, indeedy, Mr. LeBon. LeBon.
Detective McCormick,
Mr.
can you swear in the
Zuckerberg,
witness,
could you,
please?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Zuckerberg, could you please raise your left arm for me? Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you sin?
I swears it.
The witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Zuckerberg, this time I will
Okay.
remind you that you are now under oath, sir.
Of course.
Mr. Braun, you may proceed with your line of questioning for this witness.
Hi, Mr. Zuckerberg. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm okay, thank you. I've been better.
Okay, Mr. Zuckerberg. On the day in question, were you present at Pillbox Medical whenever Casterman initially was called to this 911 call about Class 2 firearms?
No, I was not. This is the first I've heard about it.
Okay. So, with that in mind, would you say it's accurate that you had encountered the suspects in question at the Pink Cage Motel rather than Pillbox Medical?
Indeed,
afterwards?
yes, that is true.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you encountered these two suspects?
Well, I was just hanging out at the Pink Cage Motel with some of my friends, having a chit-chat, sorting out my inventory of wooden spoons in my apartment and frisbees. At which point a car came in and the police came in. I had a conversation with McCormick at the time, and he actually at the time knocked me over with his car. He knocked me over to the ground, but there was another thing. We dealt with that, and the cops were questioning Butter out of the car, I believe. And then eventually, it came that they went over to... I meant McLean is what I meant. Bear with names. They went over to the car and they hopped in, and I thought, well, that's my friends. I'm going to hop in the car and, just hang out with them, see what we're up to for the day, this and that. And when a cop approached them and said, oh, we need to talk to you again, actually. We forgot we need to frisk you. And I told Butter of his rights. I said, be careful, make sure they don't abuse their power against you, And Butter was very against being taken in. He did not want this to happen, so he drove off.
Okay. At any point in time, did you spot Mr. Buddha holding a firearm?
Negative, no. I did not know anyone in that car had a firearm.
Did law enforcement mention any firearms or any reason for the detainment?
No, they refused to tell him why they wanted to detain him.
Were you outside or inside the vehicle when they decided they were going to detain Mr. Buddha and frisk
I
him?
got in prior to that, and then that conversation lasted a short period of time before he drove off abruptly.
Okay. To the best of your recollection, about how long, how much time elapsed between the request for detainment of Mr. Buddha and Mr. Buddha leaving the scene with you in the vehicle?
I would say perhaps around 30 seconds, not too much longer than that.
Okay. Once Mr. Buddha had taken off from the scene, to the best of your knowledge, how fast was the vehicle going?
Oh, a little over, maybe just under double the speed limit, maybe around 60, maybe. It's like a top speed, perhaps.
Okay, so Mr. Buddha was in fact speeding from the scene.
Yes, he was.
Snitching. He's already been arrested for it, Rico. You idiot.
Mr. Zuckerberg, had you desired to exit the vehicle at that point in time, would you have felt safe in doing so?
Definitely not. No, the car at no point was a safe point of being able to exit. It was dangerous the whole time. If I had jumped out, I may have died.
Okay. Were you a willing participant in the evasion of law enforcement by Mr. Buddha?
Absolutely not. No, definitely not.
Okay. So at the point in which the vehicle reversed and struck Mr. Casterman on the motorcycle, where were you seated in the vehicle?
I was in the passenger side, on the left next to the driver.
Okay, so you were in the front seat next to the
Yes.
driver.
Back left. I believe.
How many
I think it
occupants were in
was.
the vehicle at this time, including yourself?
Myself and Buddha and one other.
And one other.
Back left.
Where was the one
No, it
other
was back.
person
Was I back
seated
right?
in
I
the
can't
vehicle?
remember.
It was the one. Sorry, what was that? Oh, the one other. He was in there too. I can't remember if I was back or front, but I think I was front. He was in the back, of course. I was in the front. He was in the back.
All right. Back driver's side or back
I think I was front
passenger
right.
side?
I'm going to stop looking at chat.
I don't recall where he was. I believe it was behind the driver.
I was front right. No, yeah, I
Okay.
was front right. I know I was now.
So,
I'm going to stop using chat anyway. Stop looking at chat.
after
Throw
the
me off, chat.
motorcycle was struck,
Throw me off.
Mr. Casterman, as he stated in testimony, opened fire on the vehicle. At this point, the other occupants of the vehicle did also return fire. Is that correct?
Yes, they did.
Mr. Zuckerberg, did you open fire on the vehicle?
No, I did not have a weapon. I actually put my head between my knees and asked for help.
So you did ask for help.
Yes, I was shouting it almost the whole way there. All the way up until when we crashed.
Okay. All right, so getting to the crash, once the vehicle crashed, could you describe your version of how the events unfolded?
Of course, after the initial shooting from the officer, they kept going. Another officer was right behind, which allowed his bike to recatch back up. As we were driving around for a little bit, we went around Mirror Park and came out around across a little bridge that heads into the Grove Street kind of area. Not super deep in there, but kind of near where the hospital is, you know? The lower one. So we came around that corner, the wheel went out, I guess it was shot as suggested by the officer, and my door came off as we span out. We span out in a good 360 motion, and my entire door fell off, exposing the whole of me. At that point, I continued to have my head between my knees. The other two assailants ran out. I believe Ella Blaster was gunned down before he could even send a shot in the officer's direction. And Buddha ran as I continued with my head between my knees. Not moving with no door there. Perfectly visible.
Okay, so you were entirely visible at the time that
Yes.
you were shot, Mr. Zuckerberg.
Yes, the door had fell
Can
off
I
during
pause
the
you
crash.
right there for a moment, please? When
Sure,
you say
Your Honor.
anal blaster,
Ella Blaster.
who is anal blaster? Thank you very
The
much
pimp.
for the court's clarification. Thank you. All right, Mr. Braun. Sorry about cutting you off there mid-question. I just needed a clarification on who anal blaster was.
Of course.
All right, thank you.
Mr. LeBon, I'm writing this down for the transcript. It's anal blaster, right?
Anal blaster is, according to Eugene Zuckerberg, that would be Alabaster Slim.
Oh, the pimp.
Anal blaster,
For the court
aka
record.
Alabaster. All right, got it.
Yes.
His nickname, sorry
or
about
vice
that.
versa.
Nickname.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Zuckerberg, going forward, please try to use their real names.
Apologies,
instead of
apology, yes.
nicknames.
Of
Thank
course.
Okay, may I proceed, Your Honor?
You may proceed, Mr. Braun. Thank you.
So
It's on
Mr.
record
Zuckerberg,
now.
just for clarification, because there is some inconsistency in the timeline here, are you saying that officers opened fire on you after the vehicle was stopped and the other suspects had exited the vehicle?
So as we were driving down that little bridgeway, both sides were firing at each other. It was back and forth. They popped the tire as suggested by the police. We crashed. My door came off. At which point, McLean got out of the car with his assault rifle and started mowing down the car once the other two had ran out, and I again was visible with no door with my head between my knees.
Okay. Did you ever make any attempt to flee the vehicle?
No. I sat there with my hands on my head and my head between my knees.
Okay.
Actually true,
So
I know,
you,
not alive for once.
You made no motion whatsoever to exit the vehicle or leave on foot. You stayed perfectly still inside the car, exposed, with no door on your side of the vehicle.
Exactly. Exactly that.
Okay. About how much time passed between Mr. Buddha and the other assailant leaving the vehicle and Mr. McLean, as it were, opening fire on the vehicle?
Sorry, what was that? Could you repeat?
Absolutely. About how much time passed between the driver and the other passenger leaving the vehicle and officers opening up on the vehicle?
I would say a good 3 to 5 seconds. There was a good amount of time where the officer had to pull his car over, use it as a shield for himself, and pull out his assault rifle and aim and open fire. So maybe even more, maybe 7 to 8 seconds too. At least 5.
All right, 7 to 8 seconds. All right, thank you. So, obviously you were shot and seriously injured, according to these medical reports. What occurred once you were in custody?
I was aggressively taken in. Treatment took quite a while for them to get me treatment. I was taken in. I was given a doctor to help me out. I had no vest on at the time. I had smoked a couple joints, which made me, feel a little bit spiffy, But that was about that. I did not have any armor on. And I was then, after I received treatment, I was taken, and McCormick told me, is that the wrong name again? Bloody hell. What was, keep getting his name confused. McLean, that's it. He called me collateral damage. And also made many other sly remarks as, oh, it's all right, you'll be dead soon anyway. And you better not take this to court.
He told you not to take this to court?
Yes, he made vague threats, yes, in the direction of I won't be alive much longer. But he just told me it was in relation to my age.
All right, just to clarify for the court, which officer stated that?
McLean, sorry, I keep saying McCormick. It's McLean.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
All right, so
Daryl's there. That's
you,
McCormick.
tested for GSR, Mr. Zuckerberg,
I was, and I was found negative.
and you were frisked as well.
Yes, I was, yes.
All right, and so at that point in time, were you exonerated of any wrongdoing and released?
Yes, I was.
That.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg. Nothing further at this time.
Okay.
Miss West, you're
I
with
don't need to talk about the bribing shit.
All right.
No hearsay, cool. Well, that's up to her. That's up to her
So
to
the
do.
individuals that you got into the car with, you consider them friends?
Yes, I consider all the people friends.
All right. Why didn't you ask them to pull the vehicle over during the pursuit?
I did.
They're your friends. Why didn't they pull over?
Well, because they were being chased by police officers.
Did you have a phone on you at the time?
Yes.
Why didn't you call 911?
Because
Tell
I was
officers
busy. It was
that
a
you
very,
were an unwilling third party.
it was a very stressful situation where I was yelling out of the vehicle, "Please don't shoot me! Please help!"
Okay, so you could yell at the vehicle, but you couldn't get on the phone with dispatch and tell them the same thing.
Well, they were already on scene chasing. Why would I call them?
Okay. Initially in your testimony, you stated that you weren't sure who the third party in the vehicle was, and that you weren't sure where they were in the vehicle. You also stated that you had no vest, despite your medical records stating otherwise. You stated that your head was between your legs for most of the event. How could you be certain that it was
Your Honor,
Officer
objective-
Casterman who shot you?
Never mind. Withdrawn.
Withdrawing your objection. All right. Mr.
I was
Zuckerberg,
waiting
you
for
may,
a question.
All right, you may answer the question.
I can be
Or
sure
if she
of
needs
that.
to repeat it, she can do that for you.
It's all right. I can be sure of that because he admitted it. He admitted to shooting me down.
He admitted to shooting you down despite the police statement stating otherwise?
Yes, he admitted it. To my face, he said he shot me. There was also no door. He was the only one shooting into the vehicle at the time, as stated by the officer over
So
there.
he shot at you with a shotgun round despite no shotgun
No,
shells
assault
being
rifle.
found in the bulletproof vest that you allege that
No,
you
an
weren't
assault
even wearing
rifle.
despite medical records?
No, an assault rifle.
Casterman wasn't using an assault rifle.
No, I
He
was
stated
shot
this
by
many
the
times.
I was shot
Which
by
is
the other
it?
officer. I told you, McLean.
Okay, you were shot by the other officer. Why aren't you suing Officer McLean today? Why are you suing Officer Casterman if McLean was the one that shot you?
I don't know. I'm not the lawyer.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Braun.
I don't know. That's the bit I've said on Murphy. I don't know.
Actually, I've got no further questions, Your Honor.
All right.
I don't know why we
All
didn't.
right, Mr. Zuckerberg, you may step down at this time.
All right,
Thank you, sir.
cool. Oof.
Take your time. There is glass there.
I couldn't see it.
Easy on the glass.
This
Mr.
is so
Braun,
funny.
do you have any
Yeah, it's
further
pretty funny.
witnesses you'd like to call at this time?
No, Your Honor.
So you're resting at this time.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Thank you. Miss West, do you have any witnesses or evidence that you would like brought into the courtroom at this time that has already been
No,
listed
Your Honor.
in the court case? All right. Do both sides need a little bit of time to prepare their closing, or are they both prepared at this time?
I am prepared, Your Honor.
I'm prepared, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Braun, you may proceed with your closing.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court, Ms. West is going to make the argument, of course, as it's been telegraphed, that we've sued the wrong officer in court today. However, I will present to you, in accordance with the police reports that were provided, that
I told
somehow
Murphy this.
no officer has taken any responsibility in this report for opening fire on Mr. Zuckerberg. Now, isn't that strange? Isn't that strange that in 3 different accounts of this same situation, not a single officer specifies that they were the one to fire at Mr. Zuckerberg?
We might lose.
Objection,
In
Your Honor. This
examination-
was stated
Can't
in the
object
police
closing
statement.
statements. Pretty sure you can't
What
object to
was
closing
stated
statement.
in the police statement?
Are you allowed to object to
One
closing
moment.
statement?
McLean's own testimony stated that he downed 2 of the 3 individuals while Clarkson took out the third.
He did not
It is-
specify in that report which person he downed. May I continue with my closing statement, Your Honor?
This time
You can. It's extremely inappropriate.
I
Okay.
will overrule your objection. It is
Yeah, there you
stated
go.
in the police report, but it does not specify which officer, in fact, did down each of those suspects. You may proceed with your closing.
Is it
Mr.
POV?
Braun.
Maybe. Maybe
Thank
not.
you,
It
Your
doesn't
Honor.
matter if we want to lose. But
As I was saying, Mr. Zuckerberg was downed by an officer. The police report, the incident report, does not specify. None of the officers who gave a report specified that they were the one who shot Mr. Zuckerberg. No one took responsibility. Every officer involved in this situation must have understood at some level that opening fire on Mr. Zuckerberg in that moment was not the correct course of action. The police report indicates that someone on duty at that time between McLean, Clarkson, and Mr. Casterman opened fire on Zuckerberg, but none of those 3 officers were willing to take responsibility in reporting this incident. I have brought Mr. Casterman to court today, as in my knowledge, he was the ranking officer on duty during the course of that situation. Only through examination in the courtroom were we able to ascertain who specifically fired upon Mr. Zuckerberg.
That's not true.
But
I
it is
told
the
you,
responsibility
Murphy.
of
I
the
told you it
ranking
was him that
officer on
made it.
duty to give clear directives and provide order in incidents such as this. There was a period of about 8 seconds between when the vehicle crashed, when Mr. Zuckerberg was gunned down by an officer, according to this report.
I don't know who's going to win this.
That is more than enough time for a law enforcement officer to make a qualified and reasonable judgment on whether someone stationary inside of a vehicle, not presenting a weapon, poses a lethal threat to law enforcement. Per Tennessee versus Garner, at no point in time was my client, Mr. Zuckerberg, fleeing from law enforcement and presenting a lethal threat to anyone's life, and he was gunned down mercilessly as 2 other armed suspects fled the car and opened fire on officers, and Mr. Zuckerberg sat stationary and compliant
In the state, not the
in
cop.
the vehicle.
That's what you should have done.
My client was unarmed, tested negative for GSR, and was convicted of no crimes. Again, the excessive force used against this person in this situation was not a qualified decision by law enforcement and was in violation of his rights against unreasonable search and seizure. According to the Fourth Amendment, my client is due damages for this excessive force, and I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Miss West, your closing, please.
I know if we're loser or winners POV. I don't know. I've no idea, honestly. I really don't.
As we can clearly see, this is just a quick cash grab from the plaintiff to scam the good taxpayers of Los Santos out of a large sum of money. $100,000 to sue an innocent police officer just trying to do his job.
For an innocent
After
old man
having
being
several
shot.
attempts on Officer Alex Casterman's life, in which they tried to run his motorcycle over, and which he was shot at repeatedly with automatic
This closing
gunfire.
statement might fuck
And now
her,
he's
actually.
being sued for the pleasure of it. It blows my mind. As we can clearly see, Officer Casterman was not responsible for what happened to Mr. Zuckerberg. He never ordered McLean to take a shot, and despite this, McLean was well within his rights to not only defend himself but his fellow officers. Without Officer McLean's heroic actions, Casterman may not be standing before us today. The plaintiff willingly got into a vehicle full of violent felons and was a willing participant in a dangerous police chase. A pursuit that resulted in a deadly shootout. Yes, Eugene was not charged, but in the heat of the moment, officers had no idea who was shooting from the vehicle.
I know who's going to win,
only
man.
that their lives were in mortal danger. I implore the courts to take a moment and put themselves in the officer's shoes and see how you would react in this situation. At the time of the incident,
Remember,
no one
chat,
knew who was
these
responsible
aren't real
for the
lawyers,
lethal
judges,
gunfire,
DAs,
and in
ADAs.
order to secure the safety of the involved officers and the citizens of Los Santos, action had to be taken. I put full faith that after hearing all the evidence, that you'll make the right decision and see through the plaintiff's ploy. Furthermore, I would really like to address this. California Civil Code 3294 defines punitive damages as those that result from malicious, fraudulent, or oppressive behavior attributable to the defendant. A plaintiff must prove punitive damages by clear and convincing evidence, which the plaintiff failed to do so because Casterman was not responsible for anything that occurred that day. I would also like to point out pure comparative negligence when it comes to California tort law. This means that if a plaintiff is found to have contributed to his own injury through his own negligence, that the ultimate award of damages for a plaintiff will be reduced by his own percentage of fault. Now, I for one would say that willingly getting into a vehicle after the initial 911 call full of fleeing criminals and proceeding to get into a police pursuit while making no attempt to exit the vehicle safely or call 911 would fall under the scope of pure comparative negligence. Even if the courts do not rule in favor of my client, I implore the courts do not award the full amount of $100,000 for something that could have been avoided had the plaintiff simply minded his own business and carried on with his day. That is all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Miss West. At this time, I'll put this court in recess. I will go back. When I reach a verdict, I'll come back out. During this time that I'm in recess, please refrain from being loud or running around, doing anything that would cause you to be detained by the bailiff over here. Does everyone understand that?
Of course.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Yes,
All right.
sir.
If you go outside, please stick around and stay near the courthouse so the bailiff can come outside and get everybody.
Be
Thank
nice.
you.
It's only
This court is
roleplay,
now in
chat.
recess.
It's roleplay.
Spoon gang bitches.
What?
Who just said that?
I
Who just said prune gang bitches in my courtroom?
The wispy man was really loud.
The wispy man.
I don't even know who that is.
Eugene, I had no idea that you had access to the dispatch logs of the 911 emergency system.
Oh, do I?
You would be aware that there was any sort of
Wait, I
911
have-
call about a Class 2
Wait a
weapon.
minute, I have access to that? Why didn't you tell me before?
According to Ms. West, you should have been aware that there was a 911 call
According to
about Class
her, an
2s.
innocent old man being shot down isn't an issue. Making some sort of deal, for a fuck up is not in their job, apparently. They always have to try and beat down the victims instead of making a deal.
Well, I suggest in the future that you invest in some leather pants and a leather jacket so that you can tuck and roll out of a moving vehicle if you feel like.
Well, I'm going to
you're
wear
get
some
shot
Ford
down.
armor and a fucking gigantic helmet so that I can't invincible to bullets. I'm just going to drive my Panzer tank. That's safer.
I love the
Did they
little.
really gun you
Yeah,
down
that is
without
safer.
a door, Eugene?
Yeah, there was no door. The door fell off and they still was gunned down. Can you believe?
Oh shit.
I know. I'm just thinking about it now. This is victim shaming.
Uh-huh.
It's all right, Eugene. It's all right.
She doesn't care. She doesn't give a crap. Talks about protecting civilian rights while being okay with cops
It's
shooting
definitely
innocent
not
people
78
down.
seconds.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I
The man
think
jumped
she
into the
cares that
vehicles,
the correct person,
which just as everyone was
answers for
running out,
this.
he just
But
managed to
unfortunately,
be,
the
I
officers
guess, the
didn't
first one
have
to get
the
hit.
cojones to actually admit who shot you.
I know. Calling me collateral
And I
damage as
understand what
well.
Braun's getting at, because everyone knows McLean shot him, and McLean has openly said that. Okay.
You got jump, Casterman.
Like they're acting as if we just
There you
brought McLean here and it would have made that much difference. Like it would have been okay.
You know,
I mean,
You
I
okay there,
would have
Cassie?
brought McLean here
Yeah,
if he had specified, or if Casterman
mean,
had
you-
specified,
I
or if
did tell you
Clarkson
that.
had specified that he was the one who shot you. No,
Look
it's
at them
better this
giggling
way,
over
Eugene.
there at an elderly man being shot while innocent. I'm 15 days old today.
Well,
Look.
happy birthday.
May the 7th, 2019. I was reborn on top of the Jesus cross. Jesus normally is the one that gets executed every Easter, but we thought, you know what, we'll switch it around a bit. So I was reborn again, and now I'm 15 days old. As you can tell by my good skin and complexion.
Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but I mean, I guess now that we know it was McLean that shot you, if this doesn't work out, we could just sue him.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and call this court back into session. Can everyone hear me at this time?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Your
Your
Honor.
Honor.
Here we go, chat.
All right. So, after hearing all the evidence today, and specifically the testimony between Eugene and who physically fired the shots at Eugene,
Fail.
and based
It's a
off
loss.
the evidence also inside the police report, I'm not going to find Alex Casterman responsible for the
But
injuries that occurred to Mr. Zuckerberg. Now, bear with me here, and I'll tell you why. Because based off the testimony that Eugene gave and Officer Casterman, and yes, Officer Casterman was the ranking officer at that time, but I do feel that even based off the evidence that was brought before me today in this courtroom, that Officer Casterman did have control of that situation, but he should not be responsible whether an
we can
officer
refile.
pulls the trigger on their weapon and Eugene sustains injuries from that. Now, On top of that, I would also like to bring into something here
Maybe.
that Eugene will be awarded money from what we have in this city. It's a victims relief fund. Eugene was
Money!
injured, was wounded, based off of the medical report that was provided.
Not going to
and
be
brought
much,
into
though.
the
It's going to be
court
a,
case
not going to
today.
be much. It's going to be like
He
5
had
grand.
serious wounds, and he will be compensated for that through a victims relief fund that we do have set up within the city of Los Santos. But based off of the court hearing here, the civil court against Officer Casterman, I am going to find for the defendant in this case that Officer Casterman was not responsible for
That's
the
fine.
injury that Eugene Zuckerberg had received during the whole incident, which was based off the police report and the evidence that was provided in this courtroom today. However, Eugene will receive an amount of $35,000
Okay.
for the injuries he did receive,
Okay, not bad.
and that will come from the victims relief fund that we do have set up within the city of Los Santos. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and close this courtroom out.
Not bad.
This case is now completed and dismissed. Mr. Zuckerberg, if you'll come forward
All right.
and go see Judge Russell over there.
Hello,
You can
Russell.
Go ahead and make sure you get paid. Mr. Braun, if you would like to stay behind, we do have a couple things if you have the time, we'd like to talk to you about. And if anybody has
Of
any
course.
questions for me specifically about how I came to a ruling today, please come forward and we can discuss that as
Like
well.
Murphy, of course.
This court case is now closed.
You want my
Thank you.
What number do you want?
Hey.
Oh, 13.
All right, can you talk for me?
Oh, it's 13. Unless you want my ID.
All right. No, that's quite all right. I just, I get a lot of,
What car? I don't know. I'll
I
ask
get a
him
lot
what
of
he
no's
wants.
behind you.
All right.
No.
Dennis, I'm a little concerned. All right.
Thank you.
I feel like you
All
can,
right,
you can
everybody,
talk to the
don't
judge after
swarm me,
court, but-
okay? All right, everybody, relax. Okay.
Very, very well argued.
What do
Ms.
I
West.
owe
just
you,
wanted to say that.
Murphy? What do I owe you?
Give your stuff, sir, and let's walk up.
What's 20% of 35,000?
I can't math. You're asking me to math?
7K.
7K? Yeah. Just give me like 5K.
I'll send you 7. That's fine. All right. Thank you. I'm gonna try and get on the train for the race.
Murphy,
All
I need
right,
to
good
speak
luck.
to you.
I gotta go 5. All right.
Yeah, I'm staying behind.
Okay.
Have a
All
good
right.
day,
I'll
Mr.
send him 10.
Eugene.
Fuck you, Alex.